Welcome to Akwaaba on Muntu Bantu Digital Narrowcast. The thoughts, views, opinions expressed by the host of this narrowcast are for educational purposes only and may at times become entertaining or nonetheless serious in nature due to the topics we select and cover. We are not exposing, revealing, indicting, or telling you anything other than what's already reported by the big budget mainstream media. We look to shine the light of Baba Mungu by exposing what is done in darkness to light. Enjoy the narrowcast.
Welcome, family. Welcome to Akwaaba on Muntu Bantu Digital Narrowcast.
This is Jade Phoenix Rising.
And this is your brother SilverbackKONGO. We welcome you back, family. And wow, Jade, this is part 2, right?
Yes, episode 006. Yes, part 2 of the Willie Lynch letter, How to Make a Slave in 2023.
Wow.
Yes, and it's with, before we proceed, how are you feeling today? Because I know how I am feeling today.
You know, there is so much. Like I told a friend the other day that the world, sister in South Africa, was we were texting back and forth, and I was just telling her the world is boiling. You know, there was a time where they were able to separate the people by countries, right? By region, by the use of you have to pay to make a call in another country, right? By not having internet, by you had to be able to send a letter, and then the letter will reach someone 3, maybe 2 weeks later. You know, there was a time where everyone seems, you know, if you were on another continent, it seems like it was like it was literally a journey to get there. Now, due to technology, everything is instant. Okay? If somebody is in a little village in Congo somewhere, you can just text and they're like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm climbing up a tree. I'm going to get my mango, you know? Like, you know what I mean? And then
one of the sweet pleasures of life.
Exactly.
Especially in the Caribbean,
right?
too. It's like, yes.
Oh, I'm about to
Let me go get some fresh fruit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm about to go swim, take a swim in my, you know, and you're like, and somebody's in New York. Oh yeah, I'm in my penthouse. So the disconnect or the separation, it's no longer there. It's becoming less and less and less. And with the technology that's coming, you're not going to take 10 hours to get to Africa. It will be like 3 hours. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You won't need to go and the plane doesn't need to make stops. It's just a direct line. So the technology is removing that veil of secrecy. You
True.
see, like,
Mm-hmm.
so we, but there's also a flip side to that as well, that there is less and less privacy,
Mm.
right? There's less and less privacy. So when you allow this technology to, um, now it wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't an entity that literally is looking at everything you do to not allow you freedom, but to further oppress you.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah, I
right.
mean, we definitely have, it's interesting because we do have technology that keeps us connected, and
Mm-hmm.
we can definitely do it faster. Those days of getting prepaid cards are over, long time over, and paying per minute is over, where we have unlimited everything. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of veil, uh, I think the harshness and the realities of things that are happening in life, the stark contrast between the illusion of life, the things that we fancy. It's hard for us to be distracted by what's going on around us, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's health wise, whether it's economic wise, or even just the weather. I mean, we see how in parts of the world there's some major tornadoes, extreme flooding, and California has seen some catastrophic levels of snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
I believe 55 feet of snow
Mm.
around Lake Tahoe. So it's just unmistakable. Like, there's no way people can ignore climate change, um, and uh, economic challenges, and that's
Mm-hmm.
always been an issue. And then health issues. It's just so there's no way for people to be isolated in their worlds as if things aren't affecting
Mm-hmm.
um, those you love, or people around you. I know that money could only do so much in terms of shielding people, but we all are mortal, so we can be affected in different ways. And I personally see it, and
Mm.
I'm affected by it as well. So it's tough. It's very tough. It's tough to experience and also see the suffering of others. It's not something I delight in at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So the question really is, how is this letter affecting you?
Oh, well, yes, family, in terms of presenting this letter, it has been a challenge. I think, um, to a certain degree, when we see shows and movies or documentaries, especially biographies, you want things to be accurate contextually. You want information to be as factual as possible so that you can say, okay, this was a very good program. But you have to remember, some of the topics that we're presenting here on our Narrowcast are very sensitive in nature. And just as a preface before we share anything, there is absolutely nothing that we share that we personally haven't either experienced ourselves or have seen affected in others. So
Mm-hmm.
this particular letter has been a challenge for myself because I've read it. It's horrific. It's detailed. It's um, historical. It is part of our history. It's one of the things that you don't necessarily pick up a textbook and see in black and white. It's something that almost seems like it was hidden. It existed, but at least when I was growing up, I've never read it until I became an adult. And even though this letter was written in the 1700s, it's astounding how uh, it's
How
practiced.
accurate it is, right?
Yeah, and how it's still being used today is just that
Mm-hmm.
we, in our modern day society, are so focused on making the money and paying the bills and, running our errands that we don't realize that the system that we are involved in or deeply engrossed in, or I don't want to use the word trapped, but we're we're definitely involved
Mm-hmm.
in its practices without realizing
Yeah,
that that what we're experiencing is still systematic racism and control.
it's
And it's incredible, and it's very very raw. So yeah. So in terms of how I feel today, oh my goodness, I feel sad,
mm,
but then I feel hopeful because I think it is important for us to wake up
mm-hmm.
and be aware that we have choices in our life and we don't necessarily have to go with the flow because everybody's is going through this. We can think and do things differently, and it is important for us to acknowledge what we're going through and see what we can do in our lives to improve our situation.
Yeah. I mean, when I personally, I'm not trying to get you to feel some kind of way about the letter. You know, if anything, I want you to be cognizant of the system that's in place and the drafters of the system, right? Because I mean, if you want a bird's eye view of the those who benefit greatly in this system, I'm going to refer a movie to you. Okay, it's called Ascending. Jupiter Ascending. Okay, the main actors are Tate. Was it that? What was his name again? Tate. Something Tate. Chadden. Um, Chad. Um, is that guy?
I wish I could help you out. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, yeah. Something Tate. I don't remember. I don't remember his first name. That's how much like I mean, the movie was so impactful. You don't need to remember the characters in the movie because it's a movie that gives you an idea as to how those who control all the resources in the world really thinks about those who don't have any resources, right?
I just Googled it. His name is Channing Tatum.
Yes, Channing Tatum. Yes, him and
Hmm.
Mila something, Mila
Mila
Kunis.
Kunis.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. You
Definitely will
know,
check this out.
yeah. Check that movie because it gives you. It just it shows you that your society that you live in. It's not by accident. It's a well designed world. We live in a world that is designed, right? And those who control it, who control the resources, who control the governments, they dictate where you stand, where you are, and if you out of line, if you got too much, right? If you're gaining too much, if you're speaking too much, if you're doing anything too much, they've got something to say. And this is when you realize that's when you actually awake, when you realize that, oh, somebody's actually determining where I get to live, how I get to live, how I get to live, how I get to spend my time on this plane, in this
Mm,
dimension, right? So you
hmm.
get to really realize that there are people or entities who've put things in line to have a certain outcome, right?
Hmm.
Whether it is economically, whether it is just the way you think, there are entities who control that,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Yeah.
and I and I
Mm-hmm.
and I think and I'll give it back. I'll hand it to you. Just one second. If you think of the scripture where Isaiah Congo says, "The truth will set you free," right? If you know
Mm-hmm.
the truth will set you free. That is very, very true. He's talking about a reality. Okay, he's talking about a consciousness. Um, he's talking about a place. He's talking about your existence. So if you just think about that. Do your own research. Really, how free are you? Do you think you're really free? Are you really, really free? Can you just get up and go to another place, another country, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you in this life is like they have so much things that you have to do in order for you to progress. It's like, especially in the Western world, there's so many things that you have to do. Simple things. Maybe you have to get a license. Maybe you got to do this to do that. I mean, yes, it's well organized. It's well coordinated. It's laws in place. But are you really free?
Mm-hmm.
I land my plane. Go ahead, Jade.
Mm. Well, in terms of our uh, creating that reality, with all the effort and energy and technology, imagine what the world would be like if we used all of our everything for the
Mm,
good of human beings. I mean, when I look at the world in terms of nature, it's so beautiful. They have the aurora borealis. You look at the constellations, waterfalls. I mean, if you've ever watched National Geographic and you're looking at the sea life, it is a beautiful planet. And it
mm-hmm,
would be so wonderful if the humans could get their act together. Because it's not the animals at war with each other to the point where there's massive destruction, to the point where there's an imbalance. It's us. This is our planet, and we're messing it up tremendously. And, there's no other living creature on the face of the earth. I mean, we may hate mosquitoes, but they're not just wreaking havoc all over the world to the point where we can't exist or coexist with them. I mean, they're annoying, but they're not destroying the world as much as we are and hurting each other. And it would be wonderful if we could have what we do benefit all of mankind in terms of love. I would love to see more love
mm,
instead of this systematic oppression causing depression and famine and uh, all of the things that we dislike or are
mm,
experiencing now.
mm,
And reading this letter, this is intentional hate. This is intentional destruction and
mm,
control, and it's not an accident. So when we wake up and we go to work, or we are in school, or seeking employment, or just opportunities, the struggles that we are facing is not accidental. It's not like,
mm,
sometimes we get up and we're like, what could I do, in my life differently? And what do I want to be in 5 years? And we're very harsh on ourselves when we don't make our goals. And for us as individuals, as people of color, you know, it's not our fault that there's so much evil in the world. And when I say our fault, I'm talking about the systematic breakdown of goodness, of what we're supposed to be doing when God, in the book of Genesis, said, He created the world and everything in it, and the responsibility of caring for the world was entrusted to us.
mm,
And what have we done with that? How are we fulfilling His calling? We have a responsibility to care for one another, to love one another, to take care of the animals. So when I see and learn about GMOs and genetic crossbreeding of animals that are not supposed to exist, and things that are causing disease, with
Mm-hmm.
all of our intelligence and craftiness, we're just making ourselves physically sick, emotionally sick, mentally sick. We're not supposed to be eating fake food. We're not supposed to, um, you know, play God. There's no other way to put it,
Well,
because we're really not doing a great job naturally, and now we're just adding some more science and technology to it and making it even worse.
well,
So,
I mean,
yeah,
well, Jade, I'm gonna have to give you a pushback. It's not we. There is a
true.
selected entity that is doing this.
That's true.
All
You're
right,
right.
so
Thank you for the correction.
it's not we. These entities have created a world of scarcity. Okay, I mean, the planet does not like resources. We don't like any resources, but they've created a world of scarcity so they can control all markets. Okay?
Mm,
I mean, not too long ago, you know what they were hoping for, Jade? You know what they were saying?
what?
You can do research on this, and anyone that's listening, you can do research on this. They were expecting for the 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 resource, the gold, to be obsolete by 2050.
Mm.
You know that?
Obsolete,
Y-
obsolete. Come
Meaning
on.
that the mining of that, there won't be any more gold. There was like they
Oh,
were
they
saying,
want they
oh,
want to get it all,
there
to,
was no
to
no
find it all.
they were saying that
Ultimate greed.
they were giving this estimate, oh, by 2050, the world wouldn't have any more gold. So they've been holding gold, hoarding. You see, these people who create
Mm,
scarcity, they have been holding gold for years, centuries,
mm,
right?
mm,
So not too long ago, maybe I think was it 2 years ago, during the pandemic, where they found a mountain in Congo, a mountain that's full of gold, that's full of gold, and I don't know if who's controlling that right now. It must be one puppet, one little Negro who they're gonna use, they're gonna put forward and say, hey, listen, give us access to those gold, to that gold.
mm.
Okay,
Wow.
they found a
Well, I mean,
mountain.
when it comes to greed, it seems like that temptation, that sin is like unlimited.
Yeah,
It's just yeah, it's unfortunate that people are driven to the point of madness over
yeah,
resources.
yeah.
Wow.
But
Well, yeah,
and
it's unfortunate.
I said that to say that I was making that reference to say that the letter that we are reading, it's all about resources.
Mm,
Okay? It's all about resources. It's all about uh at that time utilizing us human beings, the Muntu,
mm-hmm.
okay, the melanated black people, to be the machinery, okay, for
Mm-hmm.
them to cultivate their wealth.
Mm,
So, and this is where it gets touchy, because till now, even to today, the same playbook is being used, but more sophisticated, where it lures you to sleep.
true.
We're being lured to sleep, you know? So we want to wake people up. It's unfortunate, it's like when you're waking from somebody comes and just disturbs your sleep, abruptly wake you up. They wake you up. You can be annoyed. Like, why are you waking me up for? You know what I mean? So this is what we're gonna
Mm,
get. The pushback you're gonna get from people is like, who this is a fake letter. This is not real. Who said this? You're gonna get those people. You're gonna get those who don't want to hear this letter, who don't want to evaluate, examine, if
mm-hmm.
reflect. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get those. So
Yeah,
yeah. So
definitely. Well, thank you for
mhm,
sharing
mhm.
your feelings about it. in
Mm-hmm.
general. And I'm glad that I got a chance to share with our listeners how I'm feeling because
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's not all um, roses and cherries. This is the reality that we are facing and have always been facing, and we want people to be aware that it's not our imagination, and it's not just an isolated situation with you at your job or what you're going through in your family dynamics or just your struggle to discover what you can do well and be successful at it in a climate that is just so corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So we're up against a lot of challenges, but this letter confirms and at least uh, as we've mentioned before, the playbook of what's being used to systematically create this chaos, this unfortunate reality that we still face today. So, listeners, we have a lot to share. We will be providing the link so that you can read the letter yourself. We're not making this up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the goal of this message is not to make you depressed or to feel like we're trying to make you think that um, we're not trying to project anything that we're not experiencing already. This is
Mm-hmm.
just us sharing what we've been aware of, and just making it available to you so that you know where some of the things that we're experiencing comes from. you know and that's basically it. You will do your research and come to your own understanding of what it means to you, and how you go about it is up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you want to get into it?
Yes, let's get into it.
Mm-hmm. But before we start, I think we should give them what do you call it? You wanna
A visual.
a visual? Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
more like a not dessert, but what do you call it again? I keep forgetting the word.
Appetizer. An
Appetizer.
appetizer.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's give you an appetizer before we get into the main course. Okay. So yeah, let me give you a visual. All right, family. There you go. Huh? Beautiful, huh? It's a beautiful t-shirt.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So the I guess the quote of the day is, as you saw in the beginning of the Narrowcast, we rise by lifting others.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I love this t-shirt. I love the colors actually. It's very vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the phrase, I think, sometimes we as individuals, we get up and we're used to, caps and t-shirts and mugs that say hustle, you know, or classic quotes like seize the day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like an individual challenge for yourself, or an individual goal. Spiritually speaking, rising by lifting others requires us to share, to empower, to encourage, to enlighten, to enrich the lives of others as a collective. And this rings true to why we started this narrowcast, because we want to rise by lifting up others. We
Mm-hmm.
want our listeners to know we're in this together. We're experiencing this all in real time, whether you live here in America or abroad in Africa or the diaspora, the Caribbean. We all are a brethren, a sisterhood that are experiencing different challenges. And we need to remember to encourage one another. You know, we are in this together. We're going through things. And even within your own family, it doesn't hurt to say, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or, uh, it's a challenge, but I believe in you. Words of encouragement is refreshing. We don't have to necessarily look for praise, but it is important for us to encourage each other because life is challenging. When you send your children to school, you want them to have a great day. It's not just, oh, get them out of the house. Of course, you might want some downtime for yourself, but realistically, you want them to do well. And so we, as adults, need to remember we need to encourage each other. And whether it's your brother or sister or your neighbor that you've embraced as a friend or a brother or sister, love them, encourage them, and let them know eh, what you see in terms of like, I see the leader in you, or I
Mm-hmm.
see how you're an overcomer. And those words of encouragement goes a long way. So this t-shirt, if you're interested in purchasing it, we'll have a link below,
Mm-hmm.
and wear it with confidence and knowing that, yeah, you know what, I have a message, and my message is love, and I love encouraging and lifting others. So I encourage you to take a look at this t-shirt. It's unisex, and we have great sizes. uh, I mean, a variety of sizes, and it would look great on you.
Yeah. I mean, how does this pertain to the message today? Basically, this quote pretty much says, if you raise your consciousness, right? If you raise your consciousness, then you are able to lift others, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're able to lift others. You can only be a benefit unto others when you lift up your consciousness, right? So that's the way
Mm-hmm.
I perceive this message. I perceive this quote of the day. It encourages me personally to be an asset to my people and not a burden. So if you raise your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and you know better, then you do better. All right.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And
Do
now,
better.
yes, definitely. So we bring this message to you, this particular message to, support the Narrowcast, support the business that we are venturing into, by purchasing this particular quote. You'll be
A
supporting
t-shirt.
our mission. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And let the word, utilize the words. Allow the words to impregnate your mind so that you can be a vessel for others. And with that, family, let's get back to the full course meal. All right. I'm going to get back to home base.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jade, what do you say? Should we just get on with it? I mean,
Yes.
I know
Yes. Yes.
we just gotta get home. We gotta get to it. So what we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
do is, obviously, we're gonna Jade. It's a long letter. It's a long letter.
Mm-hmm.
When we initially did the first part one, we just wanted to give you a
The
preview,
overview.
overview.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, that's the word. Overview for you to set your mind. Okay, and the part two now, we're gonna complete this with part two. And Jay, I'm gonna read the first 2 pages because what? It's a 4 page
Four.
letter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 4-page
So
letter.
I'll read 2 pages, and then Jade is gonna read the other two pages. The reason I'm reading the first 2 pages is because I don't really want to read the last 2 pages. I think a woman's touch is much better to it, because just even reading it is like the things that
A
was
woman's
saying.
touch. It's hard to make this letter nice, but I will
Yeah,
do my best to
yeah. I mean, it's
to
like,
to present it in a way that at least it's digestible, but it is not easy
yeah.
in general.
There were just certain words that they were using in that letter that I can't say it. I think it would be better for you to say it. That's why I was suggesting that you read the last 2 pages. Wow.
Okay.
But
All right. So let's get into it.
let's get into it. My goodness gracious. Let's get into it. And I read slow because I want people to get the full to really dig into. Sometimes when someone reads it and and you're listening, you get a little bit more as opposed to when you're reading yourself, right? Okay, if you can bear my English. Okay, gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of the problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. I'm going to read that again. Where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented, as our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose vision of the Bible we cherish. I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the trees and the ropes on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You're not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings, slaves are running away, your crops are sometimes left in fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Now, I'm going to read it in case you missed that. You're not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you're having uprisings, slaves are running away, your crops are sometimes left in fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires, your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. We are at 311. Okay? My methods is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among these slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it is there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in a valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short, Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action, but before that, I shall assure you that the distrust is stronger than trust and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. That is the first part of the letter. Let's make a slave. It was the interest and business of slave holders, excuse me, to study human nature. And the slave, now family, I'm going to stop you for just 1 second. Listen very, very carefully, because the first one outlines the method, right? It outlines the method. Now they're going to go into, and it's very, very important that we truly understand this next part, okay? Let's not overlook this next part. It was the interest and business of slaveholders to study human nature. The slave nature in particular, with a view to practical results. I and many of them attained astonishing proficiency in this direction. They had to deal not with earth, wood, and stone, but with man and every regard. They had, for their own safety and prosperity, they needed to know the material on which they were to work. Conscious of the unjust and wrong conscious of the unjust and wrong they were every hour perpetuating, and knowing what they themselves would do. Okay, and this is what they're talking about, the white man. Okay, were they the victims of such wrongs? They were constantly looking for the first signs of the dreaded retribution. They watched, therefore, with skilled and practiced eyes, and learned to read with great accuracy the state of mind and heart of the slave. Okay? Through this sable face, unusual sobriety, apparent abstraction, soullessness, and indifference indeed, any mood out of the common was afforded ground for suspicion and inquiry. Frederick Douglass' Let's Make a Slave is a study of the scientific process of man breaking and slave making. It describes the rationale and results of the Anglo-Saxons' ideas and methods of ensuring the master-slave relationship. Let's make a slave, the original and development of a social being called the Negro. Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse. combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them for one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature, whereas natural provides them with the natural capacity to take care of them, of their offspring. We break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They are extracted. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going into further. They give you an example how they break in a slave. Okay? Now they present another principle. Okay? And now this is a state now. Okay? That one there was mental. Now this is a state. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For fear that for our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beast together, the nigger and the horse, we understand that short-range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos, so that to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long range, comprehensive planning, articulating both skill, sharp perceptions. We lay down the following principles for long-range comprehensive economic planning. Okay? Both horse and niggers are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. You see, now this is how they are now subjugating, okay? This is a state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For orderly future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught to respond to a peculiar new language, psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. We hold the 6 cardinal principles as truth to be self-evident. You see the twist there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based upon following the discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down above. Note, neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they would have the tendency to seek their customary freedom. In doing so, might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake. They sleep while you are awake and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. You You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring, of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse in offspring development would shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generation. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female productive tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse, a female horse and an already infant horse, and compare the breaking process with two captured nigger males in their natural state. A pregnant nigger woman with her infant offspring, take the stud horse, break him for limited containment, completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle. Whereas you and anybody can ride her in her comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she would eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train the infant horse to eat out of your hand. Also, when it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, use the same process but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and the most ruthless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female, and the nigger infant, tear and feather him, tie each leg to a different horse, face in opposite directions, set him afar, and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggers. Next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining niggers male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of their God in him, for he can be useful for future breeding. So you see this? Now now when you read it and when you hear me read it, did you get more
information,
more out of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what some of the thoughts that came to mind is, just again, remember this was written in the 1700s. And I think as we, because we're in the 20th century, as we pass colonialism and the present, I think not only have people forgotten these details, but we are a product of this system in the ways that we've forgotten slavery because we're not picking cotton. We're not in the fields. We're not feeling a whip to our back when we go to work today, but yet cracking the whip of, oh, you're 3 minutes late and making a big issue over 3 minutes. That's our whip, right? But in terms of this letter, I think in the Caribbean, especially, remember, Willie Lynch was living in the West Indies, the putting people against each other and us having the frame of mentality of us judging ourselves by our hair texture, our skin color, everything is true. And that's what we've been distracted by. You look at the Caribbean and they tend to glorify, well, I'm not a Negro, I'm of a lighter persuasion, and my father's father's father was white. And they don't recognize that in this letter it said, look at the detail of how they've bred the mulattoes. You are the product of this letter because they've wanted to rape and impregnate the blacks so that they can have the light-skinned mulattoes to do their will.
Mm-hmm.
So we might say, "Oh, my hair is prettier than yours. At least I don't have to perm." And this is us in our superficial uh, self-glory of look at my body versus yours, without understanding that you are physically um, here because of this crossbreeding, because of their decision to control the slaves. Whether you are an indentured servant working in the house or you were in the fields, it doesn't matter. There was a system in place of control and breaking down the family dynamics to their liking, down to the T. This is not, oh, we just want a pretty Negro. That's not where they're coming from. The letter is not about beauty. The letter is about how they want to break the family dynamics of the male caring for his own family. The male, I mean, actually, the Negroes being separated from A, their motherland, B, their God or gods, their religion, their practice, their language, because they're here in the whether in the Caribbean or the States to work for a people that are not their people, and learning English is not the native tongue. And then down everything down to, you know, the woman looking at him, the male, being stripped of his dignity.
Yeah.
He can't protect the mother and the child. He is being beaten like a horse, treated like a worse than a dog, and if he wants to rebel, will be killed in front of you and the baby.
Yeah.
So there we in the 20th in the 19th and 20th century somehow forgot about those details and made it all about the I'm light skin, you're dark skin, I'm of this, and this same thing goes for the Latin American countries. It's not just, you know, um, Jamaica and Barbados and Bahamas, Puerto Rico too. We have to recognize that this type of systematic uh, oppression is a detailed plan of destroying the family dynamic so we are completely dependent on the slave masters, the oppressors, and no longer have a will of or even a mind of our own. And they want the children themselves to um, grow up insecure, not confident, uh, submissive. Submissive is the word for both the mother and the child. So that is what I gathered from this.
Right. Well, let's read the next two pages and then we can go and break down because the paragraphs that I've read actually especially the last paragraph that I read, it gives very, very clear details as how to break the male. Now it's gonna go on
Mm-hmm.
how to break the women. Now
Mm-hmm.
again, the breaking of the male and the breaking of the woman is not for them to be of any use to each other. The breaking of them is
Mm-hmm.
to be for them to be useless to each other. Okay?
Useless to each other, but
Yeah,
useful to them because
exactly.
it's productivity. They want to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
we're not that their stock is not running away,
Mm-hmm.
that they have their slaves to do the work because they have work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Okay. So we will continue.
mm-hmm.
All right. The breaking process of the African woman. Take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting, completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of bitch out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in the breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. Should we have strong, she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her dependent male offspring and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We have reversed
Mm-hmm.
nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
the ordeal caused her to move from psychologically dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles.
Mm-hmm.
For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak
Mm-hmm.
and dependent, but physically strong because he has become psychologically independent. She will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had alertly to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force, continually through the breaking an uncivilized savage niggers, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protective male image and creating a submissive, dependent mind of the nigger male slave. We have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and the female slaves. We show what we mean by an example. Take this case of two economic slave units and examine them close. Okay, so here are the two um, units that they're
Mm-hmm.
mentioning. I continue. The Negro marriage. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger male away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bears a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male, both nigger females being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with independent psychology will raise their offspring into reverse positions.
Mm-hmm.
The one with the female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, negotiates her at will.
Hmm.
The one with the nigger male offspring, she's being frozen subconscious fear of his life will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offspring become fertile for reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, and long range comprehensive planning.
Hmm.
Okay, I continue. Warning possible interloping negatives.
Mm.
Earlier, we talked about non economic good of the horse and nigger in their wild natural state. We talked about the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about planning a particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then, more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever unless the phenomenon occurred and reshifts positions of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring. For they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time, and it can touch some substantial original historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history. Listen carefully, family.
Mm.
To shave off their history and create multiplicity of phenomena of illusions. So multiple, oh, sorry, I'm messing up my words. Phenomena of illusions so that each illusion will twirl on its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. This creation of the stated above, the purpose for which is to create a diversified division of labor, therefore creating different levels of labor
Uh,
and different values of illusion at
Jade,
each.
uh,
Yes.
I think you skipped. It says this creation of multiplicity. I think you skipped here. Go back to this
Oh,
create.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. This creation of multiplicity, a
Mm.
phenomenon of illusions,
Mm. Entails.
entails the principle of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a
Mm-hmm.
diversified labor,
Mm-hmm. The division of
therefore
labor.
create, yes, a division of labor,
Mm-hmm.
therefore creating different levels of labor and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor, the results of which is the severance of the points of original beginnings for
Mm-hmm.
each sphere illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horses and niggers, we shall lay down the following definition terms for future generations. Orbiting cycle means a thing turning in a given path.
Mm-hmm.
Axis means upon which or around a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. Multiplicity means a great number, means a globe. Crossbreeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is not reproductive nor productive by itself. Crossbreeding niggers means taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drops by various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another circle of color appears as you desire. What this means is this. Put the niggers and the horse in a breeding pot, mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You get a multiplicity of colors of ass backward, unusual niggers running, tied to backward ass, long hauled mules, one productive of itself and the other sterile. The, the one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we may replace the mules for another tool. Both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where they came from, and neither productive for itself nor without each other.
Yeah. I mean, before you continue, that part there, I don't believe, but go ahead, continue. That's just hearsay. That's speculative. It's not. It's just it's just theory. It's just theory. You know. They just
Okay. All right.
he's just presenting. What he's presenting there is the ability of raping our women. Okay, giving himself the justification to rape our women. But go ahead, continue.
Mm. Well, I also see it a little bit differently. I see it as the erasing of our history mentally too,
Yeah.
because I mean, when you break them down to the point where they don't know where they come from, you think of a whole bunch of mulattoes running around. They don't know where they came from.
Right.
So they're trying to create another race,
Yes.
and they're neither black nor white. Like they don't know, they don't belong. They feel like they don't belong.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. They were creating
Hmm.
a buffer class. They created,
Yeah.
a group of another subclass that they can use. I totally understand that, but again, that's just a way for them to, you know, uh, um, rape our women. You know,
Hmm.
but I'm gonna give you my theory. I mean, my analysis towards the
Hmm.
end.
Sure. Towards the end. Okay,
Yeah.
great. And now we reach the end of the letter. Controlled language. Crossbreeding completed. For further severance from the original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is a particular institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of that country to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to the extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. And being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of any incidents to the maintenance of the slavery system.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you told a slave he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful in setting up the new language, for the
Mm-hmm.
slaves will soon be in your house, talking as you, as man to man, and that is the death to our economic system.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, the definitions of words or terms are only apart, a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for these language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war. The degree of conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or related relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporate him to value its way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he would worry about provisions to keep the hog pen clean, or the same hog pen and make a slip of incorporate something in his language whereby he becomes a value where he comes to value a house more than he does the hog pen. And then you got a problem. He will soon be in your house.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. So, should I go first or you want to go first?
I would say you go first.
Okay. All right. All right. So, in the beginning, he laid out the groundwork and he tells them, that he gives them a breakdown. We're going to have to separate these two entities, the man and the woman. Okay. And he goes on to tell us that mechanisms in place that needs to be destroyed, right? By nature, these two people are two civilized people.
Mm-hmm.
By nature, when they get together, when they want to form a family, right? The male is going to he's going to play his role, and the woman plays his role. But our job is to disrupt that natural process. We don't want them, okay? If we want these people to be our slaves for 300 years or more, possibly 1,000 years, we have to disconnect that natural process, okay? So they go, and then he goes further and say that by doing this, we would need to psychologically flip everything upside down, meaning
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna break down the what is natural as because they knew that we are
Mm-hmm.
equal footing to them. There's nothing we are equal footing, if not way better than them. All right, so they had to guess what fragment our mind. They had to disrupt the pattern of thought. How do we disrupt their pattern of thought that's orderly? Oh, we have to make them despise the very natural thing of themselves. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Us being a very diverse people, we are a people, as we said as I said in the previous part one, we are a diverse people. Genetically, we are a diverse people. We are people that are light skin, dark skin. You know, we have got people who've got curly hair, people who have straight hair. We got people that, you know, there are black people who got blue eyes, blonde hair. We've
Red hair.
red hair.
Mm-hmm.
We are a very diverse people genetically. We vary. Our range is very broad.
Mm-hmm.
So and they're not that diverse. Okay? White people are not diverse. Genetically, they are absolutely not diverse at all. Okay? This what makes them inferior. So they took the very good quality of us as having range, and they turned it upside down and made us despise our differences, whether it's tall, short, light, dark, old, young, right? Tribes, whatever. And the plantation is really, you know, because we were tribal people, by nature, we would know our differences. Okay, by nature, this is how we are as a people on the continent. We are a people who are very diverse, so we know our differences. So they made those things stand out. They magnify our differences and say, "Oh, you guys, you must hate the differences," right? So they made it a negative. Then they went on. Then he went on to say, you know what? To further magnify what he was saying, he's saying that let's take examples. Okay? He says we have to be able to definitely make them feel inferior psychologically in the mind. Okay? We have to make them feel like, by them watching our expressions, they made us very uncomfortable to a point where it's like when you are a parent and you're very, very heavy-handed parent who's like very strict, your child feels like you're watching them. And when a child feels like you're watching them, because that's what they made us feel, like children. They really made our ancestors feel like children, right? Like, if you're angry, you shouldn't be angry. You know? And then they would inquire, what are you angry about? Because the condition that you're in, it should be acceptable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah,
don't
we
want
provided for you.
Well,
Yeah, we
yes.
provide for you.
Yes. They don't want you to question. They don't want you to be vocal. So everything that you did, it would have been better if you just became a mute and just do exactly, because that's what they want. They want total dominance to a point where you're mindless.
You're submissive in mind and in nature, and then the women
Yes.
would also condition their children to behave so they
Yes.
don't get mistreated like their father or
So,
fathers, depending on who's the father.
yes. So they knew, okay, now we have to, and this is where it says the cardinal principle making a Negro. So they went, and it says, after we attack the mind, now the body's going to follow. Okay? Because they have to start with the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now they have to, and then he goes further, the cardinal principle of making a Negro. Now he laid out the physicality process which it would take for them to make our people slaves. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
These things, these principles, they still apply today.
Yes, that's right.
They still apply
In
today.
all industries, whether it's in the government, the schools, your jobs, and even if you're not working, you have to look at your family dynamics. Are you a single parent? Where's your husband? And how you feel about that missing other. Because the frustration that you have, and I'm sorry, I'm digressing and going a little bit straight into the women's perspective, where the women feel abandoned or cheated or whatever, there's this expectation of the male. The male should be this and he should be that and he needs to provide. But the conditions of the male is there that he is struggling to deal with. And if he cannot, then it affects the family. Okay. So the conditions are harsh, and he is in a situation where he cannot provide. Or if he can, well, I won't go there. But yes, because some can and won't. And then there's those that wish but
No.
can't.
Yeah. Well, that's that
Yeah.
again. You shouldn't feel like you can't go there, right? It's very, very
Okay.
important. So the psychology again is to break the will and the process, the natural process that's in us as beings. Okay. So and then he goes from and he go then that now they have to make it physical. All right. Now I'm going to read a part where it says cardinal principles for making a Negro. Right? It says, for fear that our future generation, listen very, very carefully. For fear that our future generation may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beasts together, right? The nigger and the horse. We must understand that short-range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos. So that to avoid turmoil in the economy,
Turmoil.
turmoil, yeah, in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long-range comprehensive planning, right? So what's important here is that's what is planning, articulating both skill sharp perceptions. We lay down the following principles for long-range comprehensive economic planning, right? So he goes in, he presents, he says, these two people are our economy. Okay? They, they are a product, but what's important, they are an economy. Okay? So don't look at them as slaves. He says, look at them as an economy. Because if you look at them as an economy, then you're going to respect what they're going to do for us. And before he's giving them an outline. He's saying, if you look at these people, yes, we're going to have disruptions here and there, right? There's going to be chaos. There's going to be turmoil in the economy. Those things happen. There's going to be an up and down. There's going to be resistance, right? But if we plan this correctly, if we plan it the way we want, it's going to turn out best for them, right? Which is very, very important. Okay, but in order for us to really have a plan, in order for us to really, really have this economy, they're going to need to break the mail. Okay, they're going to need to break the mail, and he said that it says when we break the mail, the most important part of this whole scheme, is the female. See that? It's the female. It's the female. This part, when you read this part, cardinal principles for making a Negro, it says it's the female, okay? And what's the part? It says both horses. It says both horse. We lay down the following principles for long-range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and niggers are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Basically, they are no use to them. They are no use to white men if they don't do what they're going to have to do to them. Do you understand? They are no good to them. They're going to be in opposition to them. They're in their natural state, they're going to be in opposition to them. So what's what? Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. So in order for us to have an economy, we have to break these horse. The same way, like, think of a horse, right? You're going to use a horse to go long miles, to carry heavy loads, to at that time, the horse was everything. The horse was the machine, right? When there was no train, there was a horse. When there was no court, it was a horse. When there was farming, there was a horse who helped with the ground, right? Like doing the ground. The horse was everything for production in their time. Okay, it's very, very important that we understand that, fam. You have to understand that part because the male, and is giving the reference to horse and male. The male is a workhorse. Okay, a male to a woman, a man to a woman is a workhorse. Okay, a man that a man does not need to love a woman. The woman has to love the male. You understand? Any man that goes around, oh, I love this woman, my friend, your relationship is not gonna last. She won't be around. You're only useful to her to your production. This is what this Kevin, what do you call him? Kevin Samuels and this high class, high value men. That's what it's all about. A man has to be the one who provides. The function of a man and your natural ability is for you to provide for a family. If you can't provide for your family, you are useless to a woman. She's gonna punish you. Okay? Her natural desire is for you to be that horseman, for you to be that person who will produce. This is the natural function of a man. And if a man does not feel useful to a woman, he's gonna leave her.
Yeah, I want to make a point about the making of a Negro, the male perspective, and the point that I want to illustrate is the keep the body and take the mind. Now, this is then when they didn't have industrial tools. They had the horse, and the tools were very it was physical labor that it was required to cut wheat and pick cotton and to pick fruits and vegetables. It was physical labor to do this for production. But in terms of keeping the body and taking the mind, in the 20th century, the value of men, black men, men of color, is not the same. They don't value us to say, oh, we need them to work for us. No, they take the mind because they still need to perpetuate let's just keep them busy and distracted so that they don't somehow reclaim their sense of, to find themselves to be able to lead in the households. That's where we have drugs. The mind is busy. It's gone. They want them to destroy their minds. They are distracted, even technology, movies or gaming. Their mind is not present. They're so distracted by bombarded with so much illusions and drugs because there's a mental breakdown where people are self-medicating to feel better, to escape the harshness of their lives. That there's a very uh, and also to the rebelliousness of male teens in schools where it's them wanting to fight the system and the man and thus not educating themselves, like not doing as well. And I'm not speaking for all because this doesn't apply to those who are educated on the level of I'm going to become a doctor or a lawyer or like there's the exception. This is not all males, but there are a population where they are treating or rebelling against the education system because they see it as a system that threatens them and what they want to become, even though they're still learning of what they want to become or what they want to do. So there's this fight, and thus there's this I'm trying to find the word where they are I know you guys have the word, and I'm still struggling for it.
Mm.
Where
Uh,
they're destroying themselves,
so
and education,
self
what is it? Self-destructive.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We need to educate ourselves. Like had talked about language. Once they know English, you're in trouble. They're worried about that.
yeah,
And so now we know English. We know it. So what's the excuse? Now it's okay, we have the language, but we're not uh, keen to what's going on around us. So again, take the body, keep the body, and take the mind. We're distracted. We've forgotten our history. We are distracted because of our problems, social problems, everything, every kind of distraction in the world. We're so bombarded with problems that
mm,
we can't even see straight. But we're
yeah,
physically going to work. We're physically doing what we need to do. And there's so many levels of distraction where they keep us entrenched in our problems to the point where we can't even see straight. The males don't know how to fix this. And that's why it's very important for us to acknowledge this systematic approach to destroying people of color. But two, to understand, you're not imagining this. This is not just oh, I didn't do good in school, my GPA is low, and that's why I'm poor. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the systematic oppression that we're facing as a people, and the whole breakdown of the male can't provide for the female, and the female is dependent on the system or the government for assistance, and we are so dependent on them. Eat out of the hand. Eat out of the hand. You don't need him. Eat out of my hand. You don't need him. He's no good anyway. And then the child that we bear is like, well, your father's not around. It's not an accident. So there's everything they said here is true. There is a breakdown of how they keep us busy in the mind, or at least, mental, there's a mental breakdown. And yet we're physically working or working on working. And we perpetuate that economics, whether we have a job or not. It's the system of keeping us oppressed. That works for them. Whether you have a job or not, it works for them because they take advantage of our oppression. You know, they get paid to oppress us.
yeah,
There's so many ways.
yeah. The thing is, Jade, is that you said, um, I don't know how you say. You said, take, uh, take the mind, keep the
Keep,
bodies.
yes,
No,
yes, keep the body and take the mind. Yes.
yeah, exactly. They definitely keep the body and definitely destroy the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal, like, again, in this process here, and I'm going to stay right here for a few seconds, the cardinal principles for making a Negro, because this is very, very important. They they understood the natural state between the the purpose of a man and the purpose of a woman. They needed to remove that nature, the natural function that a man has for a woman and a woman has for a man. That natural function, they had to blur that line. They had to disrupt it. They had to disconnect that connection. Okay? When a man and a woman get together, they both have a function, a purpose for that relationship to either remain or disconnect. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
they had to separate, they had to disrupt that natural order. Okay. So, and they also were very, very aware in order to have this program to continue for future, to their future, they had to, the woman who played the most important part, because she has to train when they get the men to lay down with the women, to fulfill the purpose of production, which means creating babies, they had to disconnect the natural process of a man and a woman, relationship wise. They had to destroy that natural process where the man, when the woman laid down with the man, she knew that that product belonged to the master. You understand?
Yeah.
The
If
child.
the baby was born, the
Yeah.
baby is born a slave,
Yeah.
not free.
So basically, she knew the fear of her baby. For the survival of that baby, it needed to be handed over to the master. Okay? So this further, like and again, when you look at society today, when a woman, and then they wanted her to psychologically understand that part where, when a woman says today, when a woman today are saying, "Oh no, I don't need no man, I'm strong," right? What they're doing is fulfilling what these people put in place.
Yeah, and then also
understand?
too, in terms of in terms of giving birth too, and people of the Caribbean will know this. If you ever ask your grandparents how many kids they had, I mean, you should know how many aunts and uncles you had. Back in the day, they had like 8, 10, 12 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, at this time, the more kids they have, that's more employees
Yes.
employed, or should I say slaves, because it wasn't a voluntary. They didn't apply for the job. The children were born slaves. So that's a labor force. So, all of the children, she is now managing a household of future slaves. And so the importance of her mentality of, oh, let me train my boys to be obedient so they don't get whipped and beaten or killed like their uncle or their father. She loves her children, so she's gonna, warn them, be good or else, and then instilling fear, obedience, obedience, obedience. This is the breakdown where they were free, but now they're conditioned to eat out of the hand, to be obedient. And the male had to be broken so that he doesn't rebel and say, I don't want this for my family. Internally, internal conflict. And again, remember in the first um, paragraph, they said that you have to watch keenly to see their how they react, because
Yeah.
they want to weed out those who are going to rebel. They have to be made an example of. We have to beat them. We have to break them so that there is no opposition.
Yeah.
You are our property and you must do what we say. And
Yes.
this is the way.
Yes. Now I'm gonna let me complete my analysis, Jade. So that
Sure.
so that we can make this short, and I'll be ready at an hour and 43. But you said something
Okay.
very, very, very important. You said that we have to be aware, right? That they were watching everything we do because they want, again, they when they watch your reactions, they watch your reactions because your reactions will provide, whether there was a rebellion coming, whether there was, whether you were going along with the program or you were not going along with the program, right? They to this day they do these things in corporate America.
Yes, they
They do
do.
these things every time, okay? Because they don't want any insurrections. They
Mm-hmm.
want people to be compliant. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, and another thing in a white supremacist environment, society, data is very, very important for them. Data keeps the system in place. If
Mm-hmm.
the numbers are off, then they know how to actually re-regulate, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Bring things back to the conditions that they want it to be in. That's an
Yeah.
economy. Economy
Yeah.
requires data, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
and even as we're facing this so-called pandemic, it's trying to reset everything to zero. If all the so-called middle class that and this has nothing to do with the race itself, just the Negro race. I don't even want to use a word, but I'm sorry. I apologize if I offended. But in terms of terminology of the letter, for those who have grassroots, that you've actually scratched and pinched and worked your way to having your own business, whether it's a barber shop, a boutique, a nail salon, whatever, restaurant, you have crossed that threshold of being an employee to now being an owner. And now with the climate, and I'm going to use that word in quotes, you're like flattened to zero because of so-called natural disasters and pandemic disasters, where
alleged.
you've lost your job. Yeah, alleged. Your businesses are gone. You had to close shop because of the pandemic. And now you're at zero. You're at zero. And so, there's no coincidence that some of these things happen to ensure that people don't rise. You have successfully, you know, moved out of, I'm no longer an hourly waged person. I own a business. For those who've owned houses, but then you actually owned a house down south, and now there's the natural disasters have flooded your house to the roof. Now you're homeless, back to zero. There are conditions outside of a regular hourly wage job that affects your household, where you're no longer, you have no control. You have zero control. And it's not an accident, because there's a monitoring. I'm talking about 20th century control. I'm not talking about, oh, it's just global warming and this is an isolated incident. No, because they take advantage of situations. It's not like okay, that could be a whole nother topic unto itself. But what I'm trying to say is there is a monitoring of money and people rising and making sure that people don't cross that threshold, because there's a level of control that they want to maintain. So when your kids go to school, they're watching the kids with the grades and the attendance. When your employees come to work, who is who is in compliance? If not, HR is going to be watching. There's going to be a lot of emails exchanged to make sure that you're a broken slave. You must comply, or you know you're going to be training the next person who's going to sit in your seat. There's
Yeah.
so many ways and where they break you to make you like you must comply or else you're dispensable. But in terms of economics, in the grand scheme of things, of how they're oppressing all of the people of color, it's and oh yeah, and Latin Americans too, and
Well, I
we
mean,
can,
that's
but
the
specifically us now,
that's the subclass. That's the subclass that
the
can
subclass.
I mean, again, slavery in the America was different than slavery in the South America, as well as in the uh in the islands. Um but let's continue here. Okay, so in these cardinal principles, and I know I'm kind of like I'm kind of like we're kind of stuck on this particular paragraph because it's very, very important, right? They made the male, they said the tie, both must be, it says, we lay down the following principles for long range comprehensive economic planning. Both whores and niggers are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Both
True.
must be broken and tied together for orderly production. Okay? For orderly future Special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. So there's a plan. There's a plan for the male. He has to operate as a horse. The same way, the same function that the horse has, the male has to function the same way. Complete submission and orderly in order for the economy to progress. Okay? Then in the process, we then now have to make the women, we have to pay very, very careful attention. And when I talk about careful attention, meaning she has to be healthy for production to reproduce, okay? And they're gonna use the male to make sure that she produce young ones, offsprings. And then her function will be to prepare the young offspring for further production, for future production, okay? And both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor, okay? Both must be taught to respond to a peculiar new language. So they had the men do the labor, and they had the women and child do the administrative, meaning the production of producing a child is the administrative part of the economy. In order for us to have a future economy, these female and child they play a very, very important function. That's the administrative part of it, okay? And then it says psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both, meaning the mother and child, because the mother is now what were we doing? What were we doing?
Reinforcing the mother is reinforcing what they planned
the process. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So she's gonna reinforce. Perfect word. Okay. For containment, it must be both. We hold the 6 cardinal principle as truth to be self-evident based upon the following. Basically, this method that we've had in the past, we hold it self-evident that it is going to be self-perpetuating. Okay, this process is going to continue. All right, based on the following the discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together. All right, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down and above. Now, listen very carefully, family. Listen to the note part. Listen to this part. Neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. You hear that? Accordingly,
of the nation.
You hear that, right? And he put a note there. You notice that, right? There's a note there. It says, note. Neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. Basically, translation, these two entities are extremely important for our economy. Okay? And both of these beasts, unfortunately, okay? Both of these, the horse and the nigger, are all wild, right? Basically, whether in the wild or by the natural process, they are dangerous. Why? Because if we don't put them in check, if we don't have them functioning for our need, they are useless to us. They are a danger to us. We have no economy whatsoever. Okay?
And that's why we have prisons.
Yes.
The prison system, and that's why we have to make an example of all the rest that are made. You know, and this has nothing to do with the crime itself. This is just about the system in place to make sure that we control all the males. Have a place for them, you know, make sure that they're publicly shamed.
Yes. So I'm gonna go further. Okay, we staying the same. I'm gonna close for this paragraph. Now where it says keep the body, take the mind. Keep the body, take the mind. Basically, keep the body, destroy the mind. Okay? In other words, break the will to resist. Now the breaking process is the same of both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long range economic planning. Okay? You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. Now, family, white supremacy believes in targeting your children, as my brother Jason Black would say. Okay? If you don't know Jason Black, check out his YouTube channel. It's called The Black Authority. He likes to say that. He says, white supremacy believes in targeting your children. He got that from our brother Neely Fuller. Okay? So it's very, very important, family. It's very, very important. They believe in targeting your children because if they can control your children, they can control the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what else is interesting too about this control of the keep the body and control the mind? Initially, when he came to the owners, the slave owners, the principle appeared to be just discipline them for your own good, for your plantation. But the letter in the breakdown talks about economics from a capitalist point of view in terms of the whole of the country or the nation or your country. That this indoctrination, this systematic oppression is going to create an economic system, not just benefit for your land. We're talking about the whole overall culture of of being capitalistic. We will be on top and they will always be at the bottom if you ensure that this is done. They will be submissive to us, inferior for generations. And in our first podcast with this letter, remember the timeline? They said that he said it would be good for 300 years, maybe thousands, maybe hundreds, right? He speculated in the 1700s. So we are 311 years into this system. So we are at a good place, even though it's really
it's negative.
It's a negative, but look at where we've come from. It doesn't mean that we're in a better place, but compared to the slaves then, yes. I don't fear anyone coming after me with a bullwhip to my back. You know what I mean? Like unfortunately for people who live in the South, there's still lynchings and there's still people missing. You know, it doesn't mean these horrors don't still exist, but it's not as prevalent in terms of I don't walk in that fear.
Yeah,
But I understand that we are still affected by this system, but I don't have that type of oppression in terms of fear of this happening to me today or tomorrow kind of thing.
Yeah, it's now I'm gonna close for this paragraph now. Okay, it says, and this is taking place today. All right, this is what's taking place. So what I'm about to read is exactly what's taking place. And if you need proof, just look around you and you will see exactly what's taking place. Therefore, as it says here, therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its earliest years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it on up to you, for her normal female productive tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. Okay, so when our women today who become very, very self-dependent,
Self-sufficient.
self-sufficient, right? Because the system the system is adhering to Willie Lynch's process. Okay, your government today, they know this very, very, very well. They've had this process for 300 years. They've practiced these methods for 300 years. You understand? So when our women today are going to these abortion clinics, killing our babies, when they are being disruptive with their men, when they don't have respect for their men, this process it's working according to their plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So when a woman, when their woman is being protective of the male, and she wants when our children today are being feminized, all right, when they are being attacked, this process here is going according to plan. So in order for us to break this systematic plan that they have in place, you have to really, really read this letter, internalize it, and reverse whatever they're doing into whatever they've put in place. Okay.
Yes, and to a certain degree, and what I'm going to say is going to offend some, but the the reference in terms of breaking them down to donkey, ass, mule, this or that, making them backwards and infertile. There is a reason why there's this push of sexuality in schools,
Of course.
so that the children themselves question their sex.
Mm-hmm.
This is well, I'm a male, I think, or I think I'm a female, or I like me. They're questioning their sexuality. Now, for those who are like, I'm pro-choice, like I choose who I want to be. Yes, it is your choice, but also to understand when things are pushed as an agenda in schools, it's to create confusion. The
Mm-hmm.
children are not born knowing, oh, who they're going to sleep with. They're just born and just need someone to love them.
Mm-hmm.
They just need food and shelter. They're not, waving, these are my rights. Yeah, we all have rights, but politicizing and pushing agenda where kids themselves are questioning their sexuality, this is more of the confusion. And when I say confusion in terms of like, okay, we're so distracted by so many issues, when in reality, they're just really capitalizing on our confusion.
Exactly.
Really, on economically, everything.
Well, I mean, they are capitalizing. What they're using is, you see, and it's going to talk about it in a few minutes. The next 2 pages is for you to break down. But I'm going to be the one commenting after you. After you start breaking them down. But what they have in place is what they call, they is when they talk about language, when they speak language, what they're saying is this: they have a language for you, and then they have a language for them. All right? And he says, if you allow them to speak your language, then they're gonna be on your level. So in today, and I always tell my brothers and sisters this, most people, I always tell black people all together, white people speak in code. So you have to learn to understand in between, what is it, between the lines. You have to read between the lines. All right? When you're speaking to white people, when they're speaking in their media, when they're talking in a way that they understand. This is where they invest so much going into your neighborhood, learning your quote unquote, your slang. All right? They don't care about your slang. They always want to make sure, they always want to know exactly what you're up to, because they know that is life and death if they leave it up to you to come up with your slang to create your own system. Because once you create your own system, you're not going to need their system. In fact, once you create your own system, you become a danger unto them.
Yes, yes,
Okay?
yes. And that's what they fear. That's what they fear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when they're speaking, they're always talking code. And I'm gonna give you an example, family. And this is a classic example. And most of our people don't even recognize this. They don't understand it. Okay? I like to consider myself as an expert of the white mind. Okay? I'm as this as in listen to what he says here, and I'm going to give you an example. He says, and this going to be the last part for this cardinal thing here. Cardinal. It says, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Keep it. Okay, this part here it says, okay, now listen to this very, very, very carefully, family. And I read it before. It says, note, neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. You see that? You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Okay? Now, what I want you to understand is this. You cannot rest. You understand? I have been a person who has not rested around these people. You understand? You've got to be attentive at all times in their system. It's unfortunate. If you sleep, most of the time, anybody that's caught asleep end up going to jail, end up being set up, you know? If you're close in their proximity, this is dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous to be around these people. Mm-hmm. They're unpredictable. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So they say these things about you, but that's who they are. They are dangerous to be around. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
think about some of the arrests that happen, the unwarranted arrests when you're pulled over in a car and you didn't do anything. Yes. It's like they target the male. It's like, oh, this is a big black male. I'm going to make an example of him.
Very dangerous.
And then you're beaten and resisting arrest if you defend yourself.
Mm-hmm. So here's what happens. This is what most people don't understand. When you come around white people, right? Just wait for 5 minutes. When you're around white people, if you just met them for the first time, they don't know you, you don't know them, just hang around for 5 minutes. You know what's going to be the first thing they're going to ask you? You want to guess, Jade?
No, go ahead and ask. Go ahead and tell me.
After you talk to them and you guys going back and forth, within 5 minutes of the conversation, when you meet these people, the first thing they'll ask you is, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Who are you? Who are you? What do you do? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, what do you do? Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they see you as what? A product within their environment. This is their nature. Mm-hmm. It's been ingrained in them to see you only resourceful if you can do something, if you can produce something for them. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right?
And that you're worthless if you're not.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're only useful as a product, meaning what can you bring to me that's beneficial for me? Mm-hmm. This is the nature of their mind, how a white person thinks, how they are. When they look at you as a black person, how can we make use of you? How can I use you to better myself? That's how they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we also do it to each other too, because
Yeah, you
you
learn
know
from
there's
them.
always there's this sizing up of, oh, I make more money than you,
Yes.
but in terms of being a commodity, your value, and and your worth is not just in your intelligence, but if you're not useful, you're not useful. But they'll find a use for you, because
Mm-hmm.
that's why we have drugs. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
might not work in the workplace, but we can put you can be a drug pusher and
Mm-hmm.
look good doing it, and we pay you cash. You can make as much as you want and get as many people doped up and drugged and die. It doesn't matter. You're helping us, you know, get rid of some of them,
Mm.
you know.
Well,
So yes, there's different ways of making us useful
mm-hmm.
in their world. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The breaking process of the African woman. This is all you, Jade. And I'm gonna come in after you.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah, I know I've said a lot. I think to any woman who's read this, I think we understand it without explaining it.
Mm.
Because when you're raising children, there's lots of concerns about their education and their well-being and their confidence. And I know, raising a child, it's like it's not just enough to just even picking a school that provides um, a quality education is a challenge, because it seems like the discrimination is not only racial, but the quality of education. It's like, okay, the white schools get better teachers, resources, and curricula, whereas the schools of color, it's not, the education is not up to par. The children are not being taught adequately, and it seems like, within the public school system and charter school system, that is politically motivated. There's funding that is received, and that they must adhere to standards, and these so-called standards are subpar, because having the quality of education is not the forefront. It's making sure that we're politically correct.
Mm.
And then the children are learning things like, let's just stick to writing, reading, writing, and arithmetic, instead of worrying about pro choice this and pro that all over the place, protesting everything, like, but anyway, that's just me going on the tangent there. But going sticking to this letter,
Mm.
um the image of the male in front of the wife and the children, and causing fear, being mentally weak and dependent, is something that we experience, because if you are a single parent, there's a lot of concern and fear, like, how am I going to raise a child? I don't have him. If these slaves have their children, they want to protect their children, but the male is being made an example of or killed if he rebels. They're breaking his spirit, and she too, because it said, don't hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of bitch out of her, but don't kill her. Keep her living long enough so that she can self-perpetuate this nightmare. She's going to raise the children the way we want them to. You don't even have to break the kids anymore, because once she's broken, she's going to break them in, and then you can rest. And so, getting your kids ready, oh, be obedient. You need to be, the kids they're going to school being prepared to be employees. The schools don't prepare the kids to think independently. Even how they physically sit in the schools. Some of the kids don't even have their own desk. It's five kids to one table. I mean, how is that leadership? And not only that, there's some schools where the kids, I'm talking about lower elementary school, the children are sitting on the floor until like fourth grade, third and fourth grade. Where's the desk? They can sit, they're old enough to sit at the desk, but they're sitting on the floor like babies. And so there's different types of games that are being played on the children to make them less. The children are never growing up. You want them to sit on the floor? I don't, forgive me, but I don't know of any white school that has children sitting on the floor
Yeah.
in fourth grade. They have to learn to read and write. They don't need to be sitting on the floor like a toddler.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many ways that they mentally get into our children, and they don't even need if the Negro mother doesn't do it, the schools will. They will further reinforce that the children are less. And I'm speaking to the mothers. Pay attention to where you're sending your kids to school. Pay attention to what is being taught to them, because they're trying to get into their minds so that they are not only submissive, but they don't even function right. And you know it when you're trying to help them with their homework. The mentality, their mental state, their emotional state, how they get along with each other. It's just chaos.
Yeah.
And then they write letters saying, oh, their behaviors. What happens if you have a child that wants to excel and do well? What if your child doesn't have behaviors? Let's say your child is doing really well in school. There's also some hatred there. There's this discipline that happens. Oh, it's not your turn to speak. Or, thank you for sharing, but you're not on topic. There's different ways that they will reprimand that intelligent child to somehow break their spirit of independence. They're future leaders.
And reverse.
All of your children are future leaders, and you as a mother are control of your household. So this letter, as 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 uh as devastating as it is to read and understand, you, my sister, can change this with your family and how you interact with your children, even your significant other, whether he's there or not. Understand that we can reverse this once you get your mind straight. Once you understand what is happening to you, and you can do things differently with your kids. Read to them, instill in them leadership qualities, encourage them. That T-shirt that we shared earlier. You're lifting your children up. Praise your children for what they do right. Let them know that you're proud of them. They don't. What's with it? This diploma.
It's a piece of paper.
That little piece of paper, and you shake hands with a president you've never met before. I mean, and this is for those who've actually gotten to that point. What you do with your children matters for the future of your children and our children's children, our economics, what you teach your children. You got to reverse this slave mentality, because this letter is written, the system exists. Yes, it's unfortunate that we have so-called God-fearing supremacists. They think they're God. They think they're being obedient to God. But if they actually read the Bible, they're far from it. So far from it. Their time will come when they meet their maker.
Well,
He will make sure of it.
well,
But in terms of this letter, we don't have to be scared. Be indignant.
Jade, I'm going to give a different perspective to this letter on this particular part, breaking the process of a woman. When you alter the woman, you really alter the course of civilization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the mothers are like the builders of civilization. What do I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It says take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. Basically, the woman sets the precedence as to for a man, the woman sets the precedence if you're going to leave a legacy. You understand? If
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave a legacy, my wife has to be in the same mindset as I am, where what I'm building here today. Okay, so what they did was, in order for their system, their economy to work, this woman had to be on board. Okay, and she's a very, very important part of the puzzle. All right, and it says test her. If she resists, then you're gonna have to apply physical harm to her. Okay, it says take care not to kill her. For doing so, you will spoil good economics. You understand? So the beating that was applied to the woman, it was for the natural process of her, the very natural process that she would apply for her man. The same process, the same desire to be with her man, right? To be obedient to the black male. They had to reverse that process. They need to have her become submissive to them. You understand? So
Mm-hmm.
it was very, very important for the black woman to disconnect. The respect that she had for the black male had to be removed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The kinship that she had with the black male had to be separated. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Her desire to have children with the black man had to be separated. Do you understand? And then
Mm-hmm.
furthermore, the desire for her to teach her kids the principles of her culture had to be removed as well. So that means she had to submit her will had to be for the white male. Okay? So this was her breaking. Her breaking was to disconnect her loyalty for her black man. Her disconnect was for her to lose her language.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay?
that's right.
All right? So her disconnect, because once you disconnect her, now we can impregnate her with their ideology, what they want her to do for them. This
Mm-hmm.
was her breaking.
Yeah.
Okay? So and today, if you look at today, are the black women supporting the black men in building legacy for the men?
No.
No. This was the breaking. Okay? When they have us at odds with one another, remember, their program is working according to plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the challenges that we have in raising our sons, and
Yes.
then losing them to the streets and the system. It's all a
Mm-hmm.
part of the plan,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yes. So
whether they're in school or not. It's part of the plan of breaking the males, the male, the males. Yeah. And then with the distrust, too, the women saying, okay, well, I'm not going to marry within my race anymore. And this is that mulatto crossbreeding that they
mm-hmm.
were
Yes.
doing
Mm-hmm.
to break our mentality of trusting the male, the black male.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're going to go look for someone else, but
Mm-hmm.
then only to be mistreated too because we're not accepted,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And even if you look at it across the globe, you know, Africans are found all over the globe,
Mm-hmm.
and still we face racism. We're not the ones who came into these countries looking to oppress anybody, but as a people,
Mm-hmm.
we are oppressed. We're the ones that are being victimized and slaughtered and plundered and beaten and oppressed. This is this is an example of the evil that's within the hearts of those that are greedy, those are that are supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Lynch was, at the beginning of the letter is talking about the love of the Bible. What is this?
Yeah.
Where is love? Everything that he's stated, the purpose of what they're doing is using fear, distrust, envy, control, and murder, psychological and physical warfare.
Mm-hmm.
How is this serving God? I, at this point, this man is a child of the devil. Well, he didn't say we serve our Lord Satan, but he
Mm-hmm.
might as well go ahead and say it,
Hey,
because
listen.
everything that we've read
Mm-hmm.
serves the purpose of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so, yes, they want to talk about economics and, oh, we must preserve our interests. No, this is you serving the devil. So anyone who says, wow, this is a powerful system and this really worked, we really have something on them. Hey, if you're a real God-fearing person, you're the one who is disillusioned because you're serving the devil. You are not going to heaven. You are not going to heaven. If you think, oh, I'm rich and I'm comfortable and you guys are just complaining because you're poor, you're deceived. You're the one who's deceived because you don't serve God. You serve the devil. This letter exposes the children of the devil. Yes, there is slavery, and yes, it's black versus white, and black on black, and women on, yes, all of that is all in there. But understand that this is really the work of the devil and
Mm-hmm.
those who serve the devil. Because if you knew your Father, the God, the creator of the universe and everything in it, everything was in harmony until you, children of the devil, started doing this on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the animal kingdom, there is order. Yes, the lion will eat the deer. And yes, that's life. They have to eat meat. They need to survive. But there's a balance. They don't eat everything inside and then there's like, now they have to become vegans. There's an order. There's a food chain.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a respect. Nature, there's a balance.
Yeah.
And in human life, there's an imbalance because of your greed, because of your propensity to acquire too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this ego that it is just overinflated to the point where you've lost your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You seriously have is it you okay, you have a farm and you're successful, but you want to destroy nations of races for your benefit. So this is where your ego has lost, you've lost it. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, but in terms of spirituality, you don't serve a true God. You're serving yourself, self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lesson for you too. Don't just look at this as, oh, well, these are just poor black people complaining about a system and, oh, it's unfortunate this happened and, it's not my responsibility and, I just make my money and if you work hard, you can too. No, the system exists and still exists because of this perpetuating process of let's continue to produce more of this because it benefits us, the so-called white privilege that you don't want to acknowledge that you have. You have this because it's this nation in America is built on the backs of slaves for your comfort.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, you're serving the devil. You have your money. You can, rest comfortably in the hotels, and you can go to your second and third luxury homes, and, pamper yourself with the best foods and all. But understand this. This is the system that's built on the back of slaves. And you are a product of the problem if you adhere and agree to it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you an example now. I want to stress because this is very very important. Now, women, if a woman aligns herself with a man and they have a family together and they are cohesive in their purpose and goal as far as a family, a man can leave a legacy. And the woman is the one who actually stamps that relationship and that program or whatever legacy you want to live. She's the one who stamps it, approves it. Okay, she seals it and says, "Yes, I'm gonna stand beside you and fulfill your legacy." Right? Now, if a woman does not stand beside you, there will be no legacy, because whatever children that she gives you, she's gonna condition them to do otherwise. Okay? So in order for a man or man collectively, in order for us to have civilization, our women have to be by our side in implementing, reinforcing our objective. Right? This is just natural. This is the natural state. If you go into the wild, it's the same thing. The female animal stands right next to her male, right, and fulfills whatever objective and purpose he wants to fulfill. And if the woman is not along with that animal, there will be no family, okay? And there will be no children. Furthermore, there will be no way of reinforcing the ideals, because when the child is born, the child's connection with the mother is way more stronger than the father. The child does not need the father at all the first 5 years of their life. Okay? There's gonna come a time when the man is gonna serve a purpose in the child's life, but the first 5 years, the child doesn't care about you, daddy. All the connection between the child and the mother is very, very important. And through that connection, then the mother will be able to teach the child and reinforce whatever vision that you have for the family. Okay? So this, they understood very, very well. So they needed to disconnect that relationship between the man and the woman. And they had to separate them. So in order for them to infuse their ideals, so they can create this new civilization you call America. Okay? So this is the process they took to break the woman, which is very, very, very important. Okay? Furthermore, and it says, I'm going to go there where it says, we have reversed. So, okay, so therefore we shall go deeper. Now he goes into deep and he's giving you details now. Therefore, we should go deeper into this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in the breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. She would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male. She would have, but they reversed it. And she would have a limited productive tendency toward her independent male offspring. Now that they reversed it, she doesn't need him anymore. Okay? And then they're raising her and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. You understand? So when they reversed it, when they disconnected her from the male will now become dependent like her. So a lot of these male who have confrontation with they don't like authority, right? When men in black male today they don't like authority, right? They don't want to listen to authority because the women that this society has programmed her, our sisters. Meanwhile, if you look around, these quote unquote women movements, right? These women movements, they're not for you, sisters. Because when you look in their communities, the woman is getting along with their men. But when you look at our communities, our women are not getting along with our male. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because this was the program that's in place. It's still in place to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Where we have to fight one another. We have to go to their courts, spend your quote unquote hard earned money already, right? So they are monetizing your experience,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And you're not getting anything beneficial out of it. We're not living legacy. We have to take hold of our lives. And this note and this letter here, as much as I don't like this letter here, a lot of our people need to really read this at least once a month. Once a month. You should get this letter, frame it, and put it up in your house and read it. And read it to your kids, read it to your wife, read it to your neighbor. Let them read this as if it's a Bible. Then we can reverse the nonsense that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of our people walk around asleep. We got to wake up.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I land my plane.
Asleep or highly entrenched in the woes of their life to even be able to think of a solution. And um and definitely we can't just um wish this away. You have to make some conscious decisions on how you're going to encourage and build up your family unit. And it doesn't mean, oh, if you had a lot of money that this is possible. Yes, we all need money, but your mindset is very important. You have to have a healthy mindset. And the children have to have healthy mindsets so they can view themselves differently, because when they go to school, they're going to be broken down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going back to the letter, remember what he said. The prince, you might think, oh, you guys are making a big deal of this letter. It's old, it's in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not on a plantation. Get over it, right? But again, reread the letter and see what he said in the first paragraph when he talks about you must make a list of the differences and look at the intelligence, the size, the sex, the size of the plantation, the status. They pit us against each other. You are discriminated when you apply for work.
Mm-hmm.
Your children are discriminated by their intelligence. Well, your GPA is this, and oh, you're not smart. Everybody's brain is not okay. Physically, a brain is a mass. It's a matter that looks the same, but everybody thinks and operates differently. So to say one is more superior than the other, this is the product of discrimination. Saying, put them, let them judge their intelligence now. Systems in place. When you go to the hospital, all your information, your sex, your size, yes, it is your physical medical history for your own benefit to follow, your progress of health. But there's also the wicked side of it, whether they gather their information and say, this is what works. There's an alternative purpose for collecting the data. So understand that this system does exist, whether you are aware of it or not. And you must be aware in a way that you say, you know what? I see what's happening, and within my household, I'm going to make some changes. Your children have to learn. They have to become leaders. Everybody's not born to be minimum wage workers. There are leaders, future leaders born within your household. But it starts with you and your mindset. You don't have to think and operate just because poverty, yes, it is a condition, and some people call it a disease, but it is not a mistake. It's not an accident. So start with your mindset and understand that you can control what you think and what you believe and how you raise your children and how you respect your male partner. And yes, we all make mistakes. Yes, we all are sinners. Yes, we all if I'm going to be religious, fall short of the glory of God. And yes, it's true. However, the systematic racism and oppression that exists affects your household, and it will continue to do so until you can recognize that and break that chain of mentality. And you can do something about it within your own household.
Yeah.
And yes. And so in the letter, towards the end, you know, there was a fear of things changing, going the
Mm-hmm.
opposite direction
Mm-hmm.
of what their systems are in place. So yes, just because the system exists doesn't mean it can stay this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said it perfectly when you said there was a fear, and now I'm going to end this paragraph by saying this based on that. It's actually in the letter, and the letter it says nature had provided for this type of balance, right? So they had to, nature provided balance where the woman would be working alongside the black male, right? So they reversed it. We reversed, and he goes, we reversed, and this is in the letter, by the way, right? Nature had provided for this type of balance where the man and woman will work together if they want to create a civilization, if you want to create a legacy, right? It says, we reverse nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, and the ordeal caused her to move from her from independent state. In this frozen physiological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offsprings. Oh, I think excuse me. Let me go back. Sorry. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reversed nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death. And all in her presence. All this was done in her presence, okay? By her being left alone, after she experienced that, she realized that the man can't protect her any longer. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The man's presence can protect her. Basically, they emasculated the man. Where by nature she needs a protector. A woman by nature
Mm-hmm.
needs to have protection. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
A woman by nature needs to have a system that protects her. Okay? So, unprotected with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her physiological dependent state to a frozen, okay? Independent state. In this frozen physiological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. You see? That ordeal made her psychologically fragmented her mind to a point where she would now, out of protection for the child, for the offsprings, she's gonna do the reverse. Basically, whatever because what they have done to the male, she's gonna raise the male as a female, and she's gonna raise the female as an independent entity. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
out of
Mm-hmm.
out of protection, because if she raised the female to rely on the male, there will be no protection. You see what I'm saying? So in her
Yeah.
mind,
And mm-hmm.
in her mind, she's realized, oh, you know what? no, they're gonna do this to my child male, out of protection, not knowing that it's the wrong way. See what I'm saying? The offspring in reverse roles. For fear of the young male's life, she would psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. You see what I'm saying? So basically, she's gonna make him mentally weak. He's not gonna use his brain anymore. So, by her doing that, now she's providing the perfect tool for their system. Basically, we want a nigger male without brains. We want him to be just physically strong, but without the brains. See that? Right?
Yeah.
Without brains. So, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically dependent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. Okay, so when they remove the physical, now they've got the male to be a physical instrument for them. Okay, now we need the woman to be smart, so that she can perpetuate this system. You see, now when she's smart, she's gonna follow exactly that. Now the woman is gonna go according to their plan. So when we as black men and black women, when we don't get along, we fulfill, when we are in the system here, in the American system, we are fulfilling their plan, their mission. Okay? We are building their civilization, not our civilization. Okay? So this is why whenever you start to build something for yourself, they're always looking, because whatever you build, it cannot go in counter, cannot be it cannot be a contradiction to their system. Because if it's a contradiction to their system, it would disrupt their system. And that's not good economy, as he would say in this letter here. Okay?
Yeah.
So let me just finish this here.
Sure.
It says, what we've got, you've got the nigger woman out front, and the nigger man behind and scared. Okay? Doubtful, not certain, not confident. Okay? This is what's happening in our society today. Okay? This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be before this process here, you had to be alert. See that? Before this breaking process, we had to be alert, on guard at all times. Now,
yes,
we can sleep soundly, for out of the frozen fear of his woman stands guard for us. So now we've made this woman, who's going to use all of her brains to be a tool for the white man and to be useless to a black man. That's what's happening today.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. You know? So the question for you, family, is, what are you going to do? Or should I say, to the sisters, which plan do you want to keep applying? Do you want to continue applying the white man's methods in this society? Or you want to rediscover the way our ancient families lived? Because we are the first people on this planet. We are the first stewards of this planet. Nathan Zambi left this planet to our care. And if you look around, everything that these people have done has not been good. Has not been good.
And it goes against what his calling is in the Bible. If we're going to use the Bible as the reference, because Mr. Willie Lynch said, they cling to the Bible. The first book of the Bible is not even being adhered to. We're not taking care of this planet. This is, they're not serving the Lord. This is self-interest, and is self-destructive and perpetuates further turmoil. And for the family dynamics, it's important for for you guys to work things out. It's important for you to understand that having dysfunctionality in the family is part of the plan. But if you work together, you're going to have a healthier household
Mm-hmm.
and also, too, a healthier future for your children. It doesn't mean like internally, yes, every marriage has challenges, but we're talking about your mental state, your emotional state, and your financial state. You have to work it out to help your children have a better future because we don't have to carry the I don't need you mentality, and everybody is just spinning circles and not progressing. It's just this hamster wheel of ineffectiveness. And in terms of going blindly, no, what you're experiencing is not your imagination. There's no mistake when there's only two black people in the whole office. It's not a mistake when you look
Mm-hmm.
around and see that the custodian is Spanish and the secretary is black and the mailman is black, like the people of color at the bottom. It's not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you didn't have a quality education. This is all they're going to hire you for. And for the immigrants that are coming to this country seeking opportunity, they love new slaves.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you guys are bursting down the doors, and then what jobs are you going to get? Oh, you're going to deliver pizza. You're going to be washing windows. This is the jobs that they're going to offer you. You're going to mow the lawn. You're going to be hotel staff.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be mopping floors. And this is the need, the so-called crucial need because of economic expansions of businesses. We need more laborers. So yes, there is some other trickle down slavery um, issues that are not just for people of the African diaspora. This is also in the Latin American, South American peoples as well, and you know it. You will come to know it. But
But
then, okay, we can go off. But
but
I'm sorry for digressing, but it is there. It is there too. I'm
mm-hmm.
just putting it out there. It's there too. So
Yeah.
we have to be mindful that this is not just an isolated incident. It is systematically designed to oppress people
The
of
whole
color.
world. The
Period.
whole world. The whole
Yes,
world.
a nation. Yes. Period.
Yeah. Jade, we are approaching 3 hours.
Mm,
This time, so I mean, I think we did well. I think the rest of the rest of the paragraphs where he talks about marriage and warning possible interloping negativities, these are just mechanisms that they were afraid will, if anything happens as far as the reversing of their psychology, and they presented scenarios. They presented options by, they presented other tactics that would keep the reinforcement of what they put in place. And that is, okay, if anything happens as far as the psychology, if that so happens to revert back to their natural state, this is what we're going to do. We're going to further confuse them by breathing them with white men, okay? And then we're going to continue by providing a subclass of mulattoes, okay? And
mm-hmm.
then they're going to keep the subclass on top of the dark-skinned Negroes. So
Yeah.
they use those for backup in case the programming didn't work. You understand?
Yeah. The
So
managers, they'll
yeah,
hire the light-skinned ones to manage
yeah,
the blacks and keep us in check,
hmm,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead and read the whole entire letter. And I personally, I know I'm pretty sure Jade wants the same thing. We really want to know what you think. Okay, can you give us a different variation, different perspective of this letter? Okay, And is there a way for us to build think tanks, groups that can come together and take this quote unquote letter, okay, we can dissect it and present new principles that would actually destroy this type of thinking, these system, okay? Their system overall, because we have to shift back to our natural state, the state that our father, Baba Mungu, gave us the authority, okay, over the planet. All right. So we want to be able to what? Reverse this mindset. We want to be able to build think tanks, people, collectively as a group, right? To diffuse and to undo what has been done to our people. What do you say about that, Jade?
I think it's wonderful, and in terms of people coming together and learning how to improve your household dynamics so that you can free yourself from, as Bob Marley said, free yourself from mental slavery, because that it exists, and it's very important that we do that. It is to your own benefit, and also for the future generation of your children to and that's why Bob Marley said it best, to liberate your mind. You know, it is very important to free yourself from mental slavery and liberate your mind, because that's where it begins. It starts there. So, and yeah, they want to keep the body, but they cannot take your mind. So, you know, we can, that is something in our right to do. So thank you so much for your time, family. I know it's been a long letter. I think even as I'm reading it, it's exhausting. Um, but progress is important. We're not preaching, you know, for the sake of complaining. We all have our woes, we all have our challenges, but progress is important. And so being forward thinkers, and this is the 20th century, and opportunities exist, and we can rise. We are rising, you know, Phoenix rising. I am Jade Phoenix rising. I am constantly challenging myself to grow and learn and expand my understanding. And also, too, you know, encouraging others to do the same. Like the T-shirt said, you know, to lift, we rise by lifting others. We have to rise and lift each other up.
Yes.
And we will do it. We are doing it. Thank you so much for joining us, family, because we love you and we want you to know love prevails. Love never fails.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm SilverbackKONGO, and I hope this Narrowcast has provided some value, a new perspective, and may the Creator, our Father, be a light unto you. May you love the ways of righteousness. May all that you do come to fruition. May all that you do uplift someone else. And may all of us be a one person, a one mind, a one sound mind for our Father, the Creator, Baba Mungu. Peace. Peace.
Peace.